Our discussion today was based on The Discernment of Spirits by Father Timothy Gallagher. If you want to listen to his full lecture, I'll throw a link below in the description box so you can listen to his expert discussion. What is discernment? In its simplest definition, discernment is nothing more than the ability to decide between truth and error, right and wrong. Discernment is the process of making careful distinctions in our thinking about truth as it relates to competing philosophies, culture, or events. A discerning mind demonstrates wisdom and insight that go beyond what is seen and heard. Discernment of spirits enable us to identify what type of spirit are we dealing with. Is this spirit giving me suggestions an evil spirit, or is this a good spirit that is leading me to God? And then you are able to act and do the right thing after having identified what kind of spirit you are dealing with. What we really want is to get rid of these evil thoughts that are coming from evil spirits. The main goal of discerning spirits is to set captives free. Discernment presupposes on three things: that the person performing the discernment of spirits is a person who truly desires to accomplish God's work. The person doing this discernment of spirits is a person that is truly open. The discerner must know the Lord. If necessary, there is a co-discerner, someone who is an expert, a spiritual director to help the person, the discerner. There are three essential qualities of the heart of the discerner, the one who is performing the discernment. He has to be a humble person because faith situations are often obscure, impeded by sinfulness. The person must be charitable. The person know your own weakness and sinfulness and capacity for self-deception. And lastly, a person must be courageous. A person have the courage to take risks since there is no certitude. The first thing to remember is that we have to be aware that not every thought that enters our mind comes from ourselves or neither from our fellow human beings. There are spirits. These spirits are able to suggest in our minds different thoughts, and these thoughts are not coming from us. So once we are aware, we have to understand that these spirits, there is a good spirit and there is a bad spirit, and they have opposing goals for us. Once we are aware, we have understood the situation, we take action. Our action is either we accept this thought that they are suggesting, or if it comes from an evil spirit, we reject this evil thought. The main difference between a good spirit and a bad spirit: a good spirit gives us suggestions in our thoughts that lead us to God, while the evil spirit suggests in your thoughts things to do that will lead you to serious sin. That is the difference between a good spirit and a bad spirit. Let us now discuss Saint Ignatius' 14 rules of discernment of spirits. Let us discuss one by one. Rule 1 applies to a person who is heading away from God and towards serious sin. So the bad spirit, will try to bring sensual pleasures to the imagination of this person. It tries to double down on the temptation so that the person would go towards the serious sin. In contrast, the good spirit will affect the conscience of the person by making it experience stings and bites in the conscience, trying to prevent this person from heading towards serious sin. In Rule 2, this applies to a person who is growing towards God. In the first case, the bad spirit would make this person experience emotionally bad things like bites, gnaws, and makes this person sad. The evil spirit places obstacles, disquiets the person with false reasons. In contrast, the good spirit gives courage and strength, consolations, tears, inspirations, and quiet, eases and takes away obstacles. Let me introduce you to two terms. Consolation. What is consolation? Consolation is interior movement aroused in the soul, inflamed with love of Creator and Lord. One sheds tears, increase of faith, hope and love, interior joy, peace, and quiet in its Creator and Lord. The opposite of consolation is desolation. A person experiences darkness of soul, turmoil of spirit, inclination to low and earthly, restlessness. Soul is wholly slothful, tepid, sad, separated, loss of peace. Now let's go to rule number 3. This is about spiritual consolation. The soul is inflamed with love of God, love of created things in their Creator, experiences tears of joy, increase of hope, faith, and charity, also joy that attracts to the things of heaven. Rule 4 talks about spiritual desolation. In spiritual desolation, the person experiences darkness and disturbance in soul, movement to low and earthly things. This quiets the person from various agitations and temptations, lack of confidence, hope, and love, totally slothful, tepid, sad, as if separated from its Creator and Lord. Rule number 5. In times of desolation, never make a change. We must remember this rule number 5. So let me repeat it. In times of desolation, when you are experiencing desolation, according to rule number 5, never make a change. So what it means is that if you have been praying daily, going to Mass, often reading the scripture, making meditations, when you experience desolation in this period, don't make changes. Just continue what you are doing. That is rule number 5. Rule number 6 is related to rule number 5. It talks about a checklist. What are the things included in a checklist? Prayer, meditation, much examination, suitable acts of penance. So when you experience desolation and darkness during that period, never make a change. Take a look at your checklist and do the following. Never make a change. Do your prayers, do your meditation, do much examination, and do acts suitable acts of penance. Never stop all these things when you experience desolation. Rule number 7 talks about a trial. Trial is always part of this period. There's never a time where you will never experience a trial. There's a reason for experiencing this trial. The reason is that through trials, you may have an opportunity to resist on your own the temptation. And by doing so, you become stronger, and therefore in the future, you will have the strength to resist temptations that are being suggested by the evil spirit. Rule number 8 talks about patience. Here, the person who experiences desolation and darkness should work the virtue of patience. The person should think that the desolation being experienced will come to an end. And soon, this person looking forward would experience consolation. So, desolation will not be forever. Consolation will follow after desolation. So, just be patient and use diligently whatever means that God gives you so that you can have this patience while waiting for the desolation to end and consolation to follow. Rule number 9 talks about God's reason. Number 1, it allows us to see our faults, thereby leading us to conversion. Number 2, there is a trial, and again, this results in a learning process, and we become stronger and learn to resist. Number 3, consolation is a gift, and this leads us to be humble, or the virtue of humility. Rule 10 reminds us that in periods of consolation, we must prepare for future desolation. If we are experiencing consolation right now, we are very happy, there is so much blessing. Rule number 10 reminds us that this consolation will not be forever, and we should be preparing for future desolation. Rule number 11 talks about our attitude during these two periods. During consolation, we should remain humble, while during periods of desolation, we should remain trusting in God. So let me repeat that. Be humble during consolation. Be trusting in God during desolation. Rule number 12 talks about being firm and standing firm in the beginning. We should not run away when we see desolation coming towards us. Instead, we should trust God more and more. The more trials that come our way, the more we hang on to God. We are never alone. God is with us. So at the beginning, stand firm. Don't run away. Rule 13 talks about breaking the spiritual silence. When the trials become so hard and the desolation becomes too painful, this rule advises us to seek consultation to someone who is more spiritually advanced than us. Let's say a priest, a nun, or someone who is more spiritually more mature than you. So this is rule number 13, breaking the spiritual silence. We have arrived to our last rule, and this is Rule 14. This talks about strengthening the weak point. So, examine your weakness. What are the things that um, possible points of attack by the evil spirit? And this rule tells us that we should strengthen our weak point. To give example of rule number 14, let's take a look at this chart. If, for example, our weakness is about lustful things, because we are constantly being attacked by the demon Asmodeus, we should strengthen our weakness by practicing the virtue of chastity. If, for example, gluttony is our weakness, we should practice temperance. Greed, charity, sloth, diligence, wrath or anger, patience, envy, gratitude, pride, humility. We have just finished the discussion about the discernment of spirits. If you have already forgotten what are those 14 rules, it is advisable that we become familiar with these 14 rules until it becomes second nature. This will help you in your spiritual growth, and it will also help in spiritual warfare. God bless. Before we end, I'd just like to inform you that we already have two YouTube channels. First, the original that you have probably already known by now. And the second one is the Theology Explained for Beginners 2.0. And this is the new channel. And kindly visit also this channel and support our channel by subscribing and clicking on the notification bell and sharing this video. Thank you very much.